Hello friends, welcome back to EPG Pathshala to continue our journey of learning object oriented concepts and programming. In the previous modules, we discussed the basic building blocks of C++ program, namely classes and objects. In this module and in the next module, we would be discussing another basic building block of C++ programs, or rather basic building block of any program written in any of the programming languages called functions. So, agenda for this module and the next modules is functions in C++. Specifically, in this module, we will be discussing defining functions in C++. We will try to have a brief recap of the advantages of using functions. We would discuss inline functions, we will discuss static functions, and we will also have a look at constant functions. Though you have used functions before in other programming languages like C, but let us briefly recall what is function. So, if we have to define a function can be defined as a group of statements that is given a unique and meaningful name within a program, and we create a function for performing specific tasks, so that whenever that specific task need to be performed, that function can be used. The functions in C, the way we used to define the functions in C, the basic structure of functions is similar in C++ as well. So, functions in C++ are very similar to functions in C, except the return type default. What we mean by return type default? That when we define a function, we may or may not specify the return type of the function. If we do not specify the return type of function, then the default return type will be considered as a return type of that function. You would recall that the default return type in C is int, whereas default return type in C++ is void. Also, in C++, functions can be independent functions, or they can be defined as the member of class. In every C++ program, there has to be one function main that is necessary. Apart from that, we may define any number of functions that we think is required in our program. Those functions can be independent functions or can be member functions. You have used and defined the functions in C, but let us briefly recall that how we define functions and how we use functions. You would recall that there are 3 steps to create and use a function in C++ program, or any program for that matter: declaring a function, defining a function, and calling a function. So, we would quickly like to see that what we mean by declaring a function, what we mean by defining a function, and what is meant by calling a function. Declaring a function is telling the compiler that such a function exists. As in case of variables, you need to define a variable before you use it. In the similar fashion, in case of functions also, it is necessary for us to declare the function before we actually use it. And for declaring a function, we need to specify 3 things: 1, the name of the function, the argument it takes, and the value it returns. So, the basic syntax, as you would recall, for declaring the function is that we specify the name of the function, which should be a meaningful name indicating what that particular function does, and here we specify the value that needs to be passed as an argument. Normally that would be input to the function, and whatever results, the result that has been computed by the function would be returned through the return type of that function. Why do we declare function, or what we mean by declaration of a function? Well, declaration of function tells compiler that the declared function is defined in the program or its object module will be made available at the time of linking. Declaring a function is also known as prototyping, and in C++ function prototyping is mandatory, and if we do not provide the function prototype or we do not declare the function before using it, the compiler would raise the error. Here is an example of function prototyping. Consider the following function prototype. Here we are defining a function add, and we have given the name add to this particular function because we want to add two integers in this particular function, and the computed sum we would be returning as a return type. Now, why it is necessary for us to declare the function before we actually use it? Because with the help of the function prototyping, or because with the help of the function declaration, we would be able to convey to the compiler that what kind of value that function receives and what kind of value the function actually returns. So, a function prototype is useful for compiler for checking whether the function when called is called with the correct set of arguments or not, and the knowledge of return type will help compiler determine that the call to the function is placed at the correct place or not. Now, as we know that what is mandatory before calling the function is function declaration. Function declaration and function definition are two different things. So, what is required is the function declaration must appear before the first use of the function. So, when we call that particular function with the help of that prototype, the compiler will be able to see that whether the call that we have made to the function is correct or not. What we mean by a correct call? That whether we have provided sufficient arguments at the time of calling the function or not, and with the prototype the compiler would also know that what is the return type of that particular function. This will help compiler to determine that the call we have placed at a place wherever we have called that particular function call, whether it has been placed at the correct position or not. What do you mean by this? Let us see with the help of an example. Now, here if we have a function void print line, now this is a function which does not take any argument and it does not return any value also. Before we make a call to this particular function, we need to define the prototype or we need to declare that particular function. So, before any call, this declaration will appear, and with the help of this declaration, or you can say with the help of this function prototype, compiler will be able to say that wherever we have called the print line, whether that call or whether that use of that particular function is valid or not. What does that mean? Now, you would see that if we call the print line somewhere like this, or if we call the print line at a place like this, both these call to the print line functions are invalid. Why they are invalid? Because here you would see that we have written a statement as print line plus 5, which means that for this addition operation the two arguments that are required, out of them one is the value that is received as a return value of print line function and the 5, but you would see that print line function's return type is void and it does not return any value, therefore, this operation is not a valid operation. Similarly, when we say cout print line, here since print line is not returning any value, that means there is nothing to be displayed, therefore, both these calls are invalid, and compiler will be able to determine that these calls are invalid only when the prototyping is being done. Therefore, prototyping is mandatory and it is very useful for compiler to see that whether the way we are using the function is valid or no. Now, see, if we define another function int add int x y, int x int y, in which we have defined a function which takes two integers as an argument and returns an integer. Now, if we place this call with cout like this, or if we use this call in an expression like this, both these are valid. This kind of use of print line was not valid, but this kind of use of call to add is valid. Why? Because add does return an integer value. So, cout where we specify a call to that particular function. So, what will happen? Whatever the value which is being returned from add function will be displayed, and here the value being returned from the add function will be added to 10. So, here both the statements are valid, and therefore, a function prototype is useful for checking whether the function when called is called with the correct set of arguments or not, and its knowledge will help compiler determine that the call to the function is placed at the correct place or not. Okay. So, this is what is the declaration is. But declaration alone is not sufficient, because a function is created to perform certain task. So, we also need to implement that function, or we need to define a function where we provide the set of instructions that needs to be executed wherever that function is called, and this set of instructions will define the task that that function needs to perform at the call. Now, how do we define a function? Defining a function means implementing the function, and the syntax for implementing function is that the name of the function preceded by its return type, within the bracket the set of arguments, and within the curly bracket we specify the set of functions that needs to be set of statements that needs to be performed whenever that particular function is being called. Now, we know that we define a function for performing a specific task, but we know that step inside the function body would never execute until they are called. To use a function, we have to call or invoke that function. If we do not invoke or call a function even once, the statements written inside that function will never ever execute. So, whenever we want that task to be performed, or whenever we want that set of instructions to be performed, we need to call that function. And how do we call the function? The syntax of calling a function would look like something like this. We would put the name of the function, within the brackets we will provide the actual arguments. What are actual arguments? These are the actual values on which the operation needs to be performed. When we define the function, at that time we specify the formal arguments which do not hold the actual values on which the operation needs to be performed. They are only used to define the steps that needs to be carried out when such a task needs to be performed. But when we call a function, we want that task or those statements to be operated on some specific values, and those specific value which we call actual values or actual arguments is to be provided at the time of calling the function. So, the call would look like this. If the return type of the function is void, the call would appear something like this. Now, let us summarize or quickly see the whole thing in this example. That is, here you would see that we have a function power. Here this is not the definition of function, this is declaration of the function. Definition of the function is lying after the main function, and we have used this particular power function in main function. So, definition is appearing after the use of that particular function or after the call of that particular function, but declaration has to is present before the call of function. So, what we understand is that we can define function later, but its declaration is mandatory before we actually use or call that function. So, this is the declaration of the function, or this is the prototype of the function, and since we have declared the function or provided the prototype, compiler will successfully compile a program, because with the help of this prototype it will be able to see that whether this call that we have made to power function is a valid call or not. And as we can see that it has 2 arguments, we have passed 2 arguments, it is returning an integer value, therefore, this assignment operation is also valid. So, it is a perfect use, and this call will be bound to the definition of the function. Here we specify that how this power needs to be computed. The definition of the function may be present in the same program, or it may be present in some other program whose object module will be linked with our object module at the time of linking. So, that was a brief recap of how we declare a function, how we define a function, or how we call a function. But the thing is, why do we write functions, or what is the need of functions? We have to write one function main which is necessary for us, but why do we define user defined functions the way we have defined this power function? What is the need? Well, functions are very powerful tool to create a easy to maintain application, a manageable application, and to create relatively a simpler application. So, the advantages of functions are intellectual manageability. The functions also help us to create the stepwise refinement approach, or the function help us to use a stepwise refinement approach to program development, and also they support the reusability. Now, what we mean by the intellectual manageability? The problem that we are trying to solve, or the program that we are trying to write, may be very complex in nature, and we know that as an individual we have a limitation in terms of how much complexity we can deal at a given point of time. If I have a problem which is very complex, it may not be possible for me to deal with that complexity at a given point of time or in totality. Now, when there is a problem which is complex or so complex which I can't handle at a given point of time, what option do I have? What I can do is I can divide that complex problem into smaller problems, and function provides a good tool to create a modular design. The problem that I divided into smaller program can be coded as a separate functions. When I code them as a separate functions, what I am doing is I am dividing a big complex problem into many small less complex problems. And if even these problems are more complex or their complexity is again not manageable, they can further be divided into further small sub problems, and they can also be implemented as a function. So, the strategy of divide and rule or divide and conquer can be implemented effectively with the help of the functions. Functions also makes the application manageable by providing abstraction. What we mean by that? You might have used many standard library functions like computing cosine, calculating square root, computing logarithm. Have you ever written code for performing those tasks? No. Why no? Because somebody has created that function at one point, and they are available for you to use them. What is the advantage of that? One, we do not need to put in efforts for performing the same task again. Second, let us say I am trying to compute the square root of a quadratic equation. So, when I am trying to compute the root of a quadratic equation, at one point I would be required to calculate the square root of certain values. So, when I have to compute the square root of certain values, what I can do is, instead of writing the code for computing square root, I can straight away use the library function. What would be the advantage? I do not need to put in effort to compute the square root. At the same time, my focus is not computing square root, my focus is of finding out the root of a quadratic equation. So, I can focus on computing the root of a quadratic equation, and the details of how a square root to be calculated can be hidden. So, the square root function is providing me expression hiding the detail how square root is to be computed. So, I do not need to get into the complexity of computing a square root, making this problem of computing the roots of a quadratic equation simpler for me. And when I write an application where unnecessary complexities are hidden in other functions, my code becomes more readable. When you write an application, sometimes you might have faced a problem that from where to begin, how to start solving that particular problem. So, the approach that we follow is stepwise refinement. Rather than finding out solution for each small problem, what we do, we first try to work out a broad solution. So, let us say if I have to have a problem in hand of computing the result of students, what I do is I divide that particular problem into smaller problems. The first task that I need to perform for achieving my goal is to read the student information or student data. Then I need to compute the Now, when I read the details of the student, one of the details I would be reading would be the marks obtained in the various subjects. Now, since I have to compute the result, the second task that I need to perform is find out the total marks obtained by the student by summing the marks obtained in individual subjects. The third task that I need to perform is to compute the percentage. The fourth task that I need to perform is to determine the percentage of the student on the basis of the percentage that student has obtained, and then finally, the last task would be to display the result. At first point, I may just work out the solution in broad lines, read the student data including marks obtained, find the total marks obtained, compute the percentage, find out the class in which the student has passed the examination, and finally displaying the result. Now, at this point I am not getting into the details of how sum is to be found out, how the percentage to be computed, how the class is to be determined. I am just focusing on to the broad solution. Now, for each individual task I can write a separate function which focuses on only one task at a particular point. So, when I begin my problem like this and then I refine it by getting into the detail of how percentage is to be computed, how the class is to be determined, I am working out a broad solution, then I am refining. Now, even if these tasks are also very complex, I can further refine them further. This approach makes problem solving much more easier. Of course, the functions facilitate the reusability. The example of the square root that I was just talking about is an example of reusability. Somebody at one point has written in all the application that we write where we need the square root, or anybody who writes an application where he needs to compute a square root, he does not write a code for that. In fact, if I ask you to write the program for square root, you may not instantly do that, because you may not remember the detailed steps that need to be carried out in finding out the square root, but this ready made function helps you, saves you from getting into that particular detail, and you simply reuse the job being done by others. Some functions that you have written and you believe that you might be requiring them in future, they also can be implemented in a function, and later on whenever you want such a task to be performed, you can keep reusing them. So, functions support stepwise refinement approach to problem solving. They support the reusability, and also most importantly they are strong, they are good tools which allows you to manage very complex problem in more effective way. It would make the program readable, it would make the program easy to test and debug. Functions has lot of advantages, but it does not only have advantages, it has one disadvantage also. What is the disadvantage? That function calls generate executional overhead due to context switching. So, let us understand what is context switching, and to understand context switching we need to first understand what we mean by context of functions. The values held in CPU registers, values of parameters and local variables at a given point of the time form the context of the executing function and the program. So, a context of the program is the values at a given point of time in formal parameters, local variables, and also the values which are present in the CPU registers, which are being used by CPU to execute the statements of the function. Now, what is context switching? Now, let us say if we have a function f fun1 and we also have a function fun2, and function within function 1 we are making a call to function 2. You know that whenever a function 1 will be called, the statements of function 1 will start executing, control will be shifted to function 1 and the statements of function 1 will start executing. When we encounter this call to another function, the execution of function 1 will be suspended and the control will move to function 2. Now, at this point of time, the CPU registers like accumulators, instruction pointers would be having certain value which are forming the context of function 1, and we would need those values to execute the remaining statement of function 1. But before these remaining statements are executed, the control has been shifted to function 2. Now, what will happen? The control has moved to function 2. When the execution of function 2 will get completed, the control will again come back over here and the remaining statements will be executed. But to execute these statements, we again need the CPU registers which are holding the values of function 1, and those values will be needed when the remaining statements are to be executed. But since in between this function is to be executed, those registers need to be vacated. So, context switching would mean that whenever we shift a control to another function, all the values which were present which are being held in x, y, a, b and the CPU register at this particular point of time needs to be saved somewhere. And when we return back from function 2 and control again comes back to function 1, for executing remaining statements, those values of formal parameters, local variables and the CPU registers are being restored back, so that for execution of these statements also we are able to establish the same context in which these statements actually executed. So, the context switching on function call will require saving the context of the calling program and shifting the control to the called program, and on the completion of execution of called program, it would require returning the control to calling program and restoring the context of the calling program. All those things takes time. Therefore, we say that the function call generates executional overhead. So, this is one disadvantage that we have with the functions, but we have discussed its advantages also, and these advantages are many and overpowering. Therefore, we can ignore this advantage, and it is a good practice to make use of the function. And not only this, in C++, if the function is small, this advantage can also be overcome by declaring the function inline. Now, let us understand what is inline function. Well, inline functions are functions for which call to a function is replaced by the code of called function at the compile time. And once the code of that called function is replaced at the place of call, therefore, no executional overhead will be generated at the runtime. How do we define a function inline? A function can be defined inline by prefixing the word inline before the function prototype or function header at the time of definition of the function. So, once we write this keyword inline before the name of the function, we are making a request to the compiler that please make this function inline. And once we make this function inline, what would that mean? That whenever the call to that function will appear, compiler will replace this call with the set of these instructions. So, these instructions will be copied at the place of this call, and if we have made more calls to the swap function, at all of those points, this set of instructions will be copied. Now, once this has been done, at the time of execution, there will not be any context switching, because we are not jumping anywhere, the set of instructions are there. So, it will be a sequential execution happening, taking place over here. So, what is the advantage? That in the source program, we have attained the advantage of writing functions, because we have shunted this job of swapping over there, making this swap function provide us that abstraction, hiding the detail of how the values are to be swapped, and making this main function simpler, and this would make the program simpler, easy to manage. But at the time of execution, or the compiler is going to replace this with these statements, at the time of execution no executional overhead will be generated. Hence, we will have in the source code, we will have the advantage of writing functions, and at the time of execution the function overhead will not be generated. Now, if this is so, we can make every function in C++ inline, but unfortunately every function in C++ cannot be made inline. The inline functions have certain limitations, and only simple functions can be made inline. A function having certain characteristics cannot be made inline. So, what are the restrictions on inline functions? If the function is too large or too complex, it is recursive function, or it has static variables. A complex function which is having loops and return types. Now, in these kind of functions, if the functions are having any of these characteristics, or there are many more characteristics which you can try to explore yourself, in that case the request that we have made to the compiler to make this particular function inline will be ignored, and this function that function will remain a normal function, and it would not be made inline function. So, we make when we want to make a function inline, we simply make a request to the function that we want to make this particular function inline. That request may be accepted or may be ignored depending upon whether our function qualifies to be a inline function or not. When we define a class, inside the class also we define the functions, we call them member functions. Sometimes we define the entire function inside the class, sometimes we only declare the function inside the class, but we define the definition we keep outside the class. If we have completely defined the function inside the class like this, here let us take the example of time class. So, here these two functions read time and display time both are defined inside the class, their definition completely is defined inside the class. Every function which is defined in the class will be considered to be made inline, and since these two are simple functions, they will be made inline. You may notice here I have not used the keyword inline here, but since this function has been defined inside the class, compiler would consider these functions to be made inline, and since these functions qualifies to become inline functions, these two functions will be made inline. A member function which is being defined outside the class will not automatically be considered to be made inline, but if we want those functions to become inline, we can prefix the keyword inline to the function header like this. Now, here you see that read time and display time inside the class we have only declared them, but definition of these function lies outside the class. Therefore, if I omit this inline keyword here, they will not be considered to be made inline, but if I want them to be considered to be made inline, I can use a prefix inline before the function. A non-inline function may be defined after its call, but inline function must be fully defined before the call. You may recall in case of a normal function, before the use we only need a declaration. Definition may appear later in the same program or maybe in some other program, but in case of the inline function, the entire definition of the function must appear before this call. Therefore, a function which is lying in another object module cannot be made inline, because in case of inline function we copy the statements or the body of the function over here. Unless the definition is not there, those statements will not be available. Therefore, that function call replacement with those statements cannot take place. So, in case of inline functions, it is mandatory that we define the function, not only declare, we define the function before it is first used. Parameter passing in C++ function we have already discussed in the module 4 and 5, and you can recall that any data type including objects, pointer and references can be passed as an argument to a function. You can also recall that the functions can return any data type except arrays including objects, pointers and reference, and you would recall that except array all the data types, the arguments of any other data type by default are passed as values. And in C we can use let us say if integer, if I want to pass call by reference, in C we could make use of pointers to do so. In C++ also we can make use of pointers to do so. We can also make use of the reference variable to do so, and we have discussed this in detail in module 4. So, if you need to learn more about it, you can revisit module 4 for the same. Here we will move on to discuss another kind of a function called static function. When we discussed classes and objects in the previous modules, we had discussed about the static data members, and you may recall that the static data members are the members whose memory has not been allocated in objects. They get a separate memory allocation done for them, and there is a single copy which is being shared by all the objects of that class. So, let us quickly recall this. We had used an example of class student. Here we have the data members like roll number, name, marks obtained, total marks. Now, since we know that roll number, name and marks obtained have different value for different students, but the total marks is a common value for all students. Therefore, we had made it a static data member, and the effect of making it a static data member would be that the memory for total marks will be not allocated in different objects. There will be a common there will be a single copy which would be created for total marks, which can be shared by all these objects. What is the advantage? That if we want to make any, apart from other advantages, one advantage that we have discussed was that whenever we want to modify this, if we have multiple copies of total marks in all the objects, if we want to change the total marks, we would have to go and modify each object, but since there is a one single common copy, therefore, to modify the total marks we will have to do it only once. And you would remember that for this we had written the function update total marks, and but update total marks is the member function of student class. Therefore, for its invocation we need an object, and so that function can be invoked either by object stud1 or by stud2 or by stud3. So, either we can say stud1 update, it should be total marks. So, stud1 dot update total marks or stud2 dot update total marks. But see, when you look at this particular statement, you would see that this statement gives us a feeling that as if we are updating the total marks of student 1, but we are not doing so. What we are trying to do is we are making the total marks modified for all objects. So, if we do not want to invoke this particular function on any object, what we need to do is we can make that particular member function as static. So, here what we can do is we can prefix the keyword static before the function max marks. What would be the advantage? The moment I say static, I do not require an object for the invocation of the function update max marks. So, how would I invoke that? I can simply invoke it as student scope resolution operator update max marks. Now, here it makes more sense. What are we saying is that we want the update marks to be updated for all students or the instances of that students. But there are certain limitation on or restrictions on static member functions. What are those? They cannot access non-static data members of the class. This can very easily be, this is logically be understood. Why? Because you see, if I invoke it, I am not invoking it on any particular object. So, if inside the function I am trying to modify roll number, it would become a question as to whose roll number I am trying to modify. So, since the static member function are not invoked on any particular object, it is not allowed to access or modify the non-static data members. Therefore, the restriction is on the static member functions, that they cannot access non-static data member of the class. They do not get this pointer implicitly passed. What is this pointer? This pointer is a pointer which holds the address of the object which has invoked the function. So, if I have a member function in a class and I invoke that member function of that class, for example, let us say example of the student class only, let us say I have an object S of that student class. If I invoke read data on S, the address of S will be implicitly passed to read data function, and that would be passed in the form of a this pointer. So, this pointer holds the address of the invoking object, which is implicitly passed to that function. Since static member functions are not being invoked by object, this pointer will not be implicitly passed to that function. The static member functions cannot be virtual. We will discuss virtual function as we move on to the next modules, and that time we will understand what we mean by the virtual function, but static member functions cannot be virtual. The static member function cannot be made const or the volatile. What is a constant function? Now, this makes us the question that what we mean by a constant function. A non-static function can be made a const function. A const function is a function which cannot modify the data members. Let us understand this with the help of an example. Let us say in our time class we have function read data and display time, and we know that display time is meant only for displaying the value, and we do not expect any modification in hours, minutes and seconds in this particular function. But it is possible that a user does something like this in this particular function. What we have done over here is that we have displayed the values, and after displaying the values we have modified the values of hour, minutes and second. But you can visualize that when somebody would call a function display time, that user will not expect any change in the hours, minutes and second in this particular function, because the name of the function signifies that it simply displays the value. But what we have done is we have displayed the value and we have modified also. Ideally, a display function should not modify the value, because display function is meant for displaying values only. But when I do something like this, I would be allowed to do so, compiler will not object. But if we want to restrict the programmer from doing such a thing, what we can do is we can qualify that function as a const. The moment I say is qualify this particular function as const, all these three statements will not work. Will not work mean what? Compiler will raise an error, and therefore, even by mistake we would not be modifying the values of the data members. So, not only display time, if there is any function wherein we are sure that we do not want any modification in the data members within that particular function, it is a good programming practice to qualify it as a const. So, that at some later point also, if by mistake we try to modify them, compiler will remind us that we are not allowed to, or we are not expected to modify these values. Now, look at a situation like this, wherein I want assume there is a situation wherein I want in display time function, I want hours and minutes not to be modified, but I want seconds to be modified. If I remove this const, all three could be modified. If I put const, none of them can be modified. So, if there is a situation wherein in the constant function we want most of the data members not to be modified, but one or two members we want that function to, or we want to allow even constant functions to modify them. What can we do? Well, the C++ provides us a keyword called mutable. How do we use this mutable keyword? Since I want in the display time hours and minutes not to be modified, but I want to allow seconds to be modified here. So, I declare seconds as mutable. The moment I qualify this data member as mutable, this data member can be modified even in const member function. All right. So, in this module we try to understand what is a function, how do we define and use a function, what are the advantages of function, disadvantage of function, what are inline functions, static function and constant function. As we can have a constant function, we can also have volatile functions. A volatile function is a member function qualified with the keyword volatile, and the moment we make a function volatile, this would mean that this is a function whose value can be changed by external parameters such as hardware interrupts, network cards etc., which are not in control of program. We will continue our journey of learning functions in the next module. There we would try to have more flavors of functions like friend functions. We would also try to see that how we can have default arguments in the functions and pointers to functions etc. But in nutshell, we can say that functions are powerful tools for creating modular design of program, which is readable, effective, easy to modify, test, debug and maintain. So, friends, this is all for now. I look forward to meet you in the next module to continue our journey of learning functions in C++. Thank you.